Hello and welcome back to Bourbon, Bikes, and Business with Hank and Blaise. Blaise, how you doing today?
I'm great. Sorry to be a little bit of mourning with the Ravens, but other than that,
that was a sad loss. I was happy to see. So I'm sorry. We can both sit on the couch and watch the rest now, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Only one team gets to finish its last game as a winner each season.
True.
So
I just hope Kansas City doesn't win. I don't really like the 49ers either, but
yeah, I don't want either team to win. I hope that power just goes out and we start over next year. We'll see.
Anyway,
we got a great show for everyone today. I just want to pre-warn everyone. We just got a puppy yesterday, and we had our first night with the puppy in the crate last night. So it's kind of like your first day with a baby. Like I'm a little dry-eyed, I guess you could say. Couple of times during the night. So anyway, I'll try to keep the energy up nevertheless, and that actually leads into one of our topics today. So
hold on, what's the puppy's name?
Tucker.
Tucker, very cool.
Everyone's gonna meet him in just a second. He's actually sleeping at my feet now. He's a really chill, nice dog. So
cool.
So what we're gonna be talking about today, first of all, we're gonna talk about what we're drinking today in just a bit. And then we're going to talk about our perspectives and views and opinions on electronic drivetrains. I think you've tried a few, right? I've tried several as well. So we'll just offer our opinions and see where that goes. And then we're going to talk about, like I said, with the puppy, we're going to talk about trail dogs. My newest trail dog, how to train a trail dog. My last dog, who we just had two of our dogs pass away about a year ago. And so my last dog, Charlie, who was just the apple of my heart, she was my queen, she was my everything, but she was also my trail dog. And I'll talk about how she became my trail dog and kind of what I see for this new dog laying at my feet now, and how to basically train a dog. So before we get into that, Blaise, what are you drinking today?
Hey, I've never had this before, so this is
new one.
New one, yeah.
Okay.
I've never had any of this line. So this is a 9-year Knob Creek, 100 proof, pour. I've always, you always look at Knob Creek because they're always there. They're really good with their marketing, but I've never tried it. So here's my first impression. I just took a sip. Not a lot of aroma, for 100 proof 9-year-old bourbon, but the kicker is this is smooth for 100 proof. It's full of cinnamony. It's your typical bourbon. If you like the cinnamon, nutmeg, spicy banana flavor, I actually really like it. And it's a little burn on the edge, but not bad at all. It's got a smooth front end. Flavor hits you right in the face, and then a light, warm you up at the end.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Knob is kind of one of those everyday go-tos, like your Elijah Craig's. Actually, I have one too here. I'll talk about it in a second. Those Knobs, I have a couple here, the single barrel version, which are also very good. So is that the single barrel or is that the regular?
It says small batch, which I think is a regular
The
line,
small batch
right?
is your regular, like the Elijah Craig small batch.
And that's very good. I really like it. You can
find the single barrels pretty much everywhere. You can find them at our local place for not that much. I think the single barrel is about 60, something like that.
This was 32, which is very reasonable.
It's not crazy to step up and get into that single barrel range.
Yeah.
But those are good. So this is kind of along the lines in that it's very accessible. It's not overly expensive, but this is actually a single barrel, and this is the Four Roses single barrel.
I was looking at that today when I went to get this. I was like, oh.
Yeah, and like yours, it's 100 proof, and it's a very good pour. It's something I don't turn to very much for whatever reason. It's been sitting on my shelf for maybe a year and a half, and I just looked at it today and said, I never talk about the Four Roses single barrel, so...
What's the flavor consistency on that? If I recall, I think I've had that once. I don't know if it was in Kentucky. I might have tasted it, but I remember it being very light, like a summery drink. It's not a heavy, spicy, fruity.
Very light, fruity, cherry, almost bubblegummy, like between cherry and bubblegum.
That's what I remember. I thought that'd be a fun summer on some ice, a block of ice kind of thing in the summer. It's really hot. It's refreshing.
Yeah, it's oaky,
Hmm.
it's fruit, and a little bit of honey with just a little bit of burn on the back end. I mean, it doesn't kill you.
No, I
Just
remember it
makes it a
being
little bit
pretty
interesting, and
smooth.
it's very sweet smelling on the front.
Right.
It's a really good pour. Four Roses makes a lot of good products.
I didn't get there when I was in Kentucky. I wished I could. I mean, Knob Creek, and that would be one to follow up if I get down there again.
But I mean, for a single barrel,
Yeah.
it's like I say, easily accessible. It's almost at every liquor store I've ever been to,
Hmm.
and it's not crazy expensive. So
Cool.
it's a good pour.
Nice. Nice, nice, nice.
Where are you going, Tuck? All right, so sorry, I'm babysitting while I'm doing the show today. We probably won't see Woody. Woody and Tucker are getting to know one another still. They're
The kitty,
making
right?
friends, a couple of hisses here or there, but today seems like they're getting to know one another a little bit better. But
Cool.
Woody probably still won't come into the room. So a lot going on over here these days.
Nice.
So let's get into the first talking point today, which is electronic drive trains.
Hmm.
So electronic shifting came about, I don't know, maybe about 10 years ago with the SRAM E-Tap is what I remember as being the first.
I think it's
Shimano,
older than that. I think it's
Shimano,
older.
there are some older systems. There are some very old systems actually, but I'm talking about kind of mainstream, widely adopted. Now Shimano Di2 came out roughly around the same time. I'm not sure which was exactly first, but those have been kind of the two mainstay premier systems for the past 10
Hmm.
years. You had SRAM ETAP, you have Shimano Di2, okay?
Hmm.
And there have been others certainly that have come along during the years, but those are largely what you see. Now, I've had the SRAM ETAP 11 and the SRAM
Hmm.
ETAP 12, and I recently got from the gravel bike, the SRAM Explorer is how you pronounce it, rear derailleur, which connects to any of the front shifter systems, but provides you more of like a mountain range for
Hmm.
your gravel bike, so you can go one by with a big cassette cluster
So
on the
that's
back.
what I would need if I went on my cuddy, something like that.
Yeah,
Would it
yeah,
work?
that's probably what you want to do. Yeah,
Because I know I have the setup to go electronic if I
yeah,
wanted to.
yeah, and it would pair with your regular SRAM E-tap shifters or your SRAM force shifters or whatever it is.
Regular? I
Um,
wouldn't need different shifters?
no, mm-mm.
Oh,
No.
really?
It pairs with it as long as you have the right speed. So if you had SRAM E-tap 12 speed shifters, it would combine with the Explorer
See, I
12
got
speed.
11 speed, so would it work with that or
I
no?
think they only make it in 12 because it just came out.
Oh, it's for the newer
No,
setup.
Tucker, don't do
Yeah.
that. I'm training my trail dog as we speak. Sorry, he's eating the chair. So
Good luck with that.
I've also on the mountain bike. I've also had the Eagle systems,
Mhm.
the XX1, XO. What else? So I've had a variety of the mountain bike systems as well. So I feel like I've had decent experience. Have you tried the electronic shifting yet?
You have way more experience than I.
Okay.
I've never had a bike with it on. I've ridden it several times. You were talking about when it all started. I was thinking back in the journals of my memory. When I bought my first Specialized Tarmac SL2, I bought it at a guy in Brandywine, Delaware. And I remember going in there testing bikes. And one of the bikes he gave me was I think it was a Specialized Tarmac or something, but it had electronic shifters. It was the first time I ever. That's got to be, let's see. Shoot. When did we do the ride team in training? When did we do that?
Oh, 2007.
So I'm going to say 2009 is what I was thinking.
That
So that'd be
early,
about
huh?
that's when I first rode an electronic shifter bike. So
Really?
that was a SRAM product he gave me, SRAM shifters, and I
That
took
wasn't E-tap.
yeah, it
No,
was.
no, it wasn't because
What would it have been?
they were just coming out with red at that point.
That's what
Mechanical.
I'm talking about. Red.
Yeah,
It
it
was
wasn't E-tap though. It was mechanical.
no, it was electronic. I
Mm-mm.
remember riding electronic.
Mm-mm.
I'm going, wow, this is because my first thought was when I rode the bike, I was like, you don't even have to think about shifting. You hit it and you forget about everything. It was like so simple.
Huh. Was it on like a test bike or was it on an actual bike they were about to sell?
It was on a bike they were about to sell. They were trying to sell me the higher
Yeah.
end, and I ended up going lower end with
All
the
right.
mechanic.
In any
Anyway,
respect,
yeah,
it was the late first decade of the
yeah.
2000s when this stuff started
So
coming
you
out.
got way more experience than me, and you've done it on what road,
Mountain
uh,
and gravel.
mountain, and gravel, all three. So
Yeah.
where do we start talking about? I mean, most people
Well,
are on road
so
typically,
so
but
I think I can break them all down the same. I want to talk about installation, maintenance, and use. Break it down into those three categories, and I
okay.
think that this dog is so cute. He's resting his head on my feet right now. Okay, so let's talk about installation first. What is the
Right.
biggest difference in installation between this and the mechanical systems, the cable systems?
We must
Um,
have. Right.
the first thing I want to say is, especially with modern frames that use internal shifting, the installation is so much easier. I mean,
Hmm.
you just put up the shifters on the handlebar, you screw in the rear derailleur. If you use a front derailleur, you screw that in,
Mhm.
you link them up, and you're ready to go. You're not running cables. You're not, I don't know if you ever installed cables into a SRAM shifter. It's one of the most difficult things that you have to do because the hole inside the shifter you have to hit at a certain angle, just the right angle,
I've
and
only ever
then it
listened to
has to
my
go.
mechanic bitch as he was doing it.
Yeah, you have to go under, and then it comes back up and comes out. So
Right.
I know how to do it now because I've probably done it 60 times. But you have to put a little
Yeah.
kink in the cable. I grease the whole system from the top up down, and then I run it through using a flashlight to hit the hole just right. I mean, it's a whole
And then
thing.
you pray you don't have rust in the bottom where you can't
Yeah,
get
you
through,
hope the
like
cable
me.
doesn't fray as you're
Yeah.
pushing it through, and
Right.
then when you have an internal frame, you gotta fish it through the whole frame and bring it out, and then you gotta, as time goes on and the cables wear and stretch, then you gotta make sure you're stretching the cables and keeping everything taut with the barrel
Mhm.
adjusters and the whole
Right.
thing. So that's what's entailed with a cable system. With
Hmm.
this electronic shifting, and I'll talk about this with use in a little bit, but there is no kind of re adjusting the cables.
No
There is
friction
no
that you have to worry
installing.
about.
There is no installing the cables. It's
Right.
just linking the shifters with the derailleurs, which takes a second of pushing a button,
Right.
and then everything is flawless.
So it
Okay.
sounds install is pretty easy,
Oh,
especially.
install is great. And they give you this little guide for the rear derailleur that you kind of put on
Mhm.
the cassette, and it lines up the rear derailleur with the cassette and everything, so your shifting is just right,
Mhm.
and it's incredible. So the installation is far easier. I mean, the pricing of it is substantial. It's probably about twice the cost. I mean, the systems are all over the place,
Right.
but generally speaking, you're usually looking at twice the cost for an electronic over the cable, but it's a lot less grief um, installing. So
So
then during
let me ask a question. You're
yeah,
installing it. How easy is it to set up the shifting on the cassette on the back? Is that pretty simple?
it's nothing. You use that little guide, and so that kind of gets you in the right place for your
Hmm.
B screw, and you just line up kind of the bottom cog and the top cog, and then you put in your stop limits, which it's just screwing the screw in until you
Right.
can't go anymore. And that's it, man. That's
Hmm.
all there is to it. And then you can control the whole thing on an app on your phone too, and you can modify it so you can
Huh.
customize it so it can shift up or down depending on what shifter button you're pressing. And you can check the battery life, and you can download new firmware.
Speaking of
All of that
batteries,
as
are
well.
you going to talk about battery and pros and
Yeah,
cons with that too?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So the battery is not bad. Um,
Hmm.
I don't ride as much as you do. I always make sure that I carry a spare battery with me if I'm going for a long ride because you
Hmm.
just never know. I mean, it could short circuit if there's rain or something like that.
What's typical range on a battery? Like
Um,
hours
I
or
think they
days?
say like three. It depends on how much you ride, but like every 3 months, you should
Oh,
be changing it out.
I
I
thought you were
change
say
it
3 hours, 3 months. That's a long time.
no.
So if you're doing a bike packing trip like our pans, you'll be fine for the trip if it's charged before we leave.
For you could do 20 pants rods on the
Ah,
trip.
okay.
But that said, I always take a spare battery, and I probably change out my battery every 2 or 3 rides just because. I mean, there's no harm in doing it, and why even deal with the inconvenience of having to
Right.
stop and switch the battery? So I buy, and you can buy on Amazon knockoff batteries that
As a
go
backup. Yeah.
just as great as the SRAM battery. So I don't know how many bikes I have the electronic on now, probably 5 bikes. And so I probably need about 7 batteries, and I probably have a lot of 10 batteries. So I just always keep some in the charger fully charged, and I'll switch out. And when I switch out, put that one in the charger. And so I always have them fully charged.
Now, what are you more a fan of, SRAM or Shimano when it comes to
I've never
electronics?
tried the Shimano.
Oh,
I
so you've
do
only had
know
SRAM then. Okay.
the one thing I don't get about the Shimano is it's supposed to be wireless shifting, but every time I see it, it looks like there's wires. So, I mean, there's no cables, but there are still wires. So what's the point of that?
What are the wires then? What are the wires for?
It hooks up, I guess, to the battery.
Hmm.
So the battery you usually put in your seat post.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I guess the derailleurs hook up by wire to the battery, but that seems
Hold on. So Shimano's
funky.
battery's not on the rear derailleur; it's in the seat
It's
post.
not like a little battery that connects to
Oh, so that's very
it's
different.
yeah, it's a whole separate battery that sits in your seat post. So
Hmm.
I've never used that system, um, but the ETAP system, battery wise and energy wise, it really doesn't require a lot. It doesn't require a lot of messing around with. It's very easy.
Mm-hmm.
With respect to maintenance, also extremely easy. Like I said, there's no cable, pulling or anything that you have to keep up with.
Before you go to maintenance, let me ask a question.
Yeah.
So, say you have a gravel and a road bike, and you have ETAP or the SRAM on the road. Is it interchangeable with the gravel, or are they totally different systems?
Yeah, yeah. So until I got this Explorer rear derailleur, I always just used the regular E-tap on my gravel bike.
So
Um,
it is interchangeable in
yeah,
theory,
they have the Y-Fly
right?
derailleur that goes up to
Longer
like
one,
36T, so you can't get crazy with it.
right?
But a 12-speed 36T cassette, unless you're climbing the Himalayas, is
Right.
pretty good.
The Italian
Um,
Alps.
and you could have a smaller uh, chain ring up front
Mm-hmm.
to give you greater climbing range.
Okay.
So there's that. But now they make a gravel specific, and they've come out with like the GRX as well. Like there's all kinds of, and SRAM Force One.
It's
There's all kinds of
confusing trying to migrate. What do you need? It really
yeah, it's
depends, huh?
yeah. So yes, you can get away with just the very basic road on the gravel, and it doesn't make a difference. What the gravel setup, the Explorer setup gives you is just a greater range. So it goes up to a 44T cassette, which is pretty good. So it accommodates a
So, like, I
1044.
think I have 46. So, what would I do with that? Would that work or no?
It might be able to stretch. I was trying to find YouTube videos on that because I got my, I want to say,
But keep in
my
mind, I
Wi-Fi
went
that
from
was made for 32 to stretch to 34.
42 to 46 with the wolf tooth on the back.
Yeah, you could do that too.
So, would that accommodate it? You think that would work with electronic shifting?
Yeah,
with
it's
my
brand new, so there aren't
system?
many. It hasn't been tested a lot for those kind of things
Mhm.
yet. But I imagine you'll start seeing that pop up on YouTube.
I'd love to have electronic shifting on my
Yeah.
gravel bike. That would be cool.
Yeah, so going
You're talking
back to
about maintenance. Yeah.
yeah, the maintenance, you don't have rusted cables, you don't have to switch the cables. Once you get that rear derailleur aligned, unless you knock your derailleur hanger out of whack, I mean
Yeah.
it's perfect forever.
All the time.
That's
Really?
it. That's it.
As long as
And
you don't bang it. So
the
since
other
I'm not
thing
putting my
about it,
bike in the back seat anymore, I put it on my
yeah,
bike rack.
the other thing about it too is on the shifters, there's a micro shift button. So while you're riding, if you feel just a little twinge out of tune, you just hit the micro shift button and roll it in once or twice, and it's
Right.
like perfect. That's all you have to do. You don't
Sure,
have to
like
barrel
with your
it down.
normal, like my bike, I have to tap the shifter to get it to get it right in the
Yeah,
right
right.
spot.
Or you have to hit the barrel adjusters
Hmm.
to get it. No, nothing. Just a micro shift.
Hmm.
Um,
So
it's
that's
beautiful.
the only purpose of the microshift is to tweak the alignment a little bit.
Yeah, the micro shift button is actually what you use to sync it to the rear derailleur when you first set it up.
Yeah. Okay.
But other than that, that's what the micro shift does. It just
Hmm.
takes it in 1 or 2 millimeters or out.
Got it.
So maintenance is pretty much maintenance free. And then the ride
Hmm.
is incredible. Now, like I said, it's perfect. It's flawless once you get it set up right and you don't have to mess with it again. And it's super reliable. And this is really important on the mountain end of things where you
Okay.
may be climbing really steep hill up and over logs and rocks and stuff like that. You don't want even a second of the shifting to be off because you'll get all fouled up. So
Hmm.
it is quick, it is precise, and it is reliable. Now, the only thing I will say about it in comparison to like the ETAP cabled version is that you don't have that same, like we talked about before, the difference between ETAP and Shimano is that very distinctive click, that very
Hmm.
hard click of a SRAM system. It's the
Right.
same thing with ETAP. You don't have that anymore because it's just electronic. And so there may be times, especially in the winter, if you're wearing gloves or something like that, where you can't tell if you actually hit the trigger button or not and actually shifted. And that might be
Hmm.
one drawback of it. I've had that in winter mountain biking where you have it's more of this setup, a thumb shifter, and you
Hmm.
can't quite tell it's on a rocker panel. You can't quite tell if you hit the shifter or not because you got gloves on and things are cold and everything
Yeah.
else. That would be the maybe the only drawback in terms of use.
I'm sitting here
It was
thinking, can you clarify something for me? Like, did you say earlier you could run normal shifters with the electronic derailleur front and back, or no?
no ETAP shifters.
So you have to change your shifters out. Okay,
Well, everything has to be electronic or
that's
it
what I
won't carry.
thought. Okay, right.
Yeah. Um, Now, some people there are hydraulic brake versions of this. There are still
That
mechanical
that
brake
was my
versions.
next question. Is it
I
hydraulic or
choose,
not?
as we've discussed, I choose the mechanical brake version because even when I do use disc brakes, unless it's mountain bike, I don't use hydraulic disc brakes. I use mechanical because it's just easier to maintain and install and repair and everything else. I don't want to get into bleeding of hydraulic brakes, and that is the worst.
So yeah, because that's something I learned. They said Shimano was better on the hydraulic brakes, better than SRAM. But you're saying if you got electronic shifters, do a non-hydraulic, is what you're
Well, it
saying.
depends what you prefer. Some people like most, I would say most people prefer at this point hydraulic brakes. I do
Yeah,
use
right.
hydraulic brakes on my mountain bike because they are more powerful and reliable, probably.
I gotta
But
maintain mine once a year, so they gotta bleed them
on a road
occasionally.
bike, on a
It's not,
gravel bike where I'm not doing crazy braking or anything like
it's
that,
not as
I
bad.
choose
Yeah.
mechanical all day long.
Okay, so there's the difference. If you're not riding
That's
as
up to
much and you're
you.
on a road, you can get away with it. But if you're riding a lot and you're
Yeah,
on gravel and dirt and dust and everything, maybe
yeah,
that's better. Okay.
yeah. Um, So I haven't seen the recent expense. I mean, it fluctuates wildly. I think I mentioned on one episode when I first got into ETAP, I got a deal from overseas based on the exchange rate, and I
Right.
got the $2,000 system for like $1,200.
Wow, that's a
And then
bargain,
it shot
really.
back up to about 2,000 or a little bit more during like pandemic times where things were booming.
I
And
would think now it might be reasonable again, huh?
now that things are coming back down to earth price wise, I think there's probably some deflation going on, and certainly on the used market, you can get really good deals. I just got that Explorer rear derailleur for
Right.
I don't know $180 or something like that, brand new.
So, so you can even buy it used too, or you
Yeah.
piece it together. So let's take a hypothetical. I got my Cuddy, 2021, I think it is now, that has Shimano GRX hydraulic. I could sell that whole system. That's a pretty popular system. Um, maybe get, I don't know what I would get for that whole system. And buy, what would you recommend I buy for an electronic SRAM system? What would I get?
Well, you're already one buy on that bike,
Yeah.
so I would go with the Explorer rear derailleur with, and I pointed this out to you a couple weeks ago on Bike In. which is one of the sites that we've referred to on our
Right.
podcast before, they had a phenomenal deal around Christmas time for, and I bought a pair, SRAM Force ETAP shifters for two of them for like $300. They were
Really?
like 150 each, and
That's cheap.
and I'm pairing those with the Explorer rear derailleur that I got for like $180. I have all the batteries and everything else, and so for what is that, $500 around, I have a totally electronic system for my gravel bike. So
What?
that's what I would
500?
do. 'Cause you don't,
Shifters and
yeah,
the
you
two
don't need a front
derailleurs?
derailleur. You don't need a front derailleur. You don't
Oh,
have to
that's what I
get
was going to ask you. I don't need a front derailleur on the
your
one
one
by?
by up front,
Oh, so that cuts
right?
out some costs there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, so we're looking at SRAM Explorer,
And
Force
that's
ETAP,
XPLR. XPLR.
XPLR, XPLR. I'm going to have to research this a little bit for the next show and see what I come up with.
Yeah.
Now, you could get 3 different levels. Like you said, if you're getting Force that's sort of middle of the road, you don't really need ETAP. I mean, the red. So you have red, Force, and what?
Rival.
What is it?
Rival.
Rival, right. Would be. Do you need to get, for me, like with my big cassette on the back, do I have to get a different rear
Well, so
derailleur?
what you may want to do, if you want to go big cassette on the back, like mountain cassette, I don't know exactly what you have. That
I think I have
Explorer rear derailleur, that will go up.
46 is what I have.
What is it?
1146.
46. So that Explorer derailleur,
And it's Shimano. So do I have to change cassettes to SRAM? No, I could use that.
by technical specification, you can only go up to 44T with that Explorer rear derailleur. Will it go to 46? Maybe. I don't know.
I have a 42 cassette, the old one.
It will definitely do that.
Yeah.
Now, this is 12 speed, so make sure you're talking about 12 speed.
See, I got 11 speed. So what I got to change out there?
So you would get a 12 speed
Different
cassette. You would probably get the Explorer cassette, which is a 1044.
1044. I thought you said 12 speed.
It is.
Oh, 10,
That's
44,
the range. 10 to
12
44.
speed.
Yep.
So I would have to get a different cassette. And that would definitely work with the standard derailleur is what you're saying.
Yes. Now,
but I might give up some there.
Here's the other thing.
Yeah.
If you have a Shimano hub, which if you have a Shimano cassette, you probably do.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able. That Explorer cassette requires you to go XDR.
So
hub. Now, if you don't want to do
hub.
that, you could probably just do a SRAM 12-speed cassette.
Well, I have to get my new hub wheels. New Hunt wheels.
Yeah, or your new Hunt wheels, get them with an XDR hub.
They're on sale again. Yeah. So you need an XDR hub.
Yeah.
To run SRAM is what you're saying.
To run
because I have
that
Shimano.
Particular cassette.
Okay.
You can run SRAM with Shimano hubs using a Shimano cassette.
I can run. Say that again. I can run SRAM.
Like I use Ultegra cassettes with my ETAP systems. Just because I haven't wanted to switch over to the XDR hub yet.
Okay.
I have wheels that don't have that. So
what is the XDR hub? Just that's the compatibility.
Yeah, that just allows you to use the Explorer stuff and the
Okay.
ETAP stuff, the Axis stuff.
That's good to know. So that's a critical thing. So you got to think. So you really have to look at all different components of whatever your setup is here to make sure everything's compatible. Like you said, I'm assuming I'll go get ETAP. Well, I have 11 speed, so that I have to realize that. If I had
but you could get a 12-speed Shimano cassette that will fit on that hub. You don't necessarily have to get the new hub unless you want to use the SRAM cassette. You can use the Shimano cassette.
Oh, I could
with your current setup.
So I could start there, see if it works. If it doesn't, then I have to go get a different wheel and a different cassette if it didn't work. No.
Yeah, most
switch the cassette.
Hub bodies allow you to switch now.
Okay.
And it's a matter of a $50 different hub body.
Oh, you could run a different hub body on that same wheel?
Depends on the manufacturer, but like DT Swiss is real easy.
That's what I have, DT Swiss 1900.
Yeah, I've even done it for my Novatech hubs. I have one Bitex hub that I've done it with, say for my fat bike. So it's super easy now. Everyone has them.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
So is there anything else you want to talk about on the? That's a
That's
lot
it,
we
man.
covered.
Change out to electronics, see if you like it.
Hmm.
I'm a believer in it. I kind of poo-pooed it for a while, and I started with it. I went back to cable, and then got so sick of the misshifting and the fuss of the maintenance and everything that I went back to electronic, and I'm done. Oh,
Just make sure it's working right before we hit the pans.
well, the bike that I'm going to use for the pants is regular shifting. It's
Okay,
regular shifting.
good.
But it's only one thumb shifter, one 10-speed thumb shifter. It's very simple.
Cool.
All right.
That's a lot of information. So, subscribers, please leave some comments on if you have questions about electronic shifting versus mechanical. We'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. So the next topic, see if I can get a picture of this. So this is our next topic. Let's see if I can. There we go. He's sleeping on my foot right now.
Oh my gosh.
That's Tucker. That's going to be my new mountain bike trail dog. Okay, believe it or not. We're going to see if he works out. So
I'm sure he will.
So here's the deal with trail dogs. I know a lot of people, you see a ton of great bike videos on YouTube, people riding with their trail dogs and so forth. There's a lot of things to remember. It takes a lot of time to train them and be ready to do this. Right. So I want to go over the very basics of kind of where you start to train a trail dog, how you train a trail dog. We won't get too far into
Clarify the definition of a trail dog. Now, I pass a guy all the time on the CNO. He has a basket dog. He rides with his basket.
Yeah, there are basket dogs too, and they can be both. They can ride along. So trail dogs just ride the trail with you.
On your bike, while you're on your bike, they're riding the trail.
Yeah, usually it's a mountain bike setup.
Okay.
But yeah, so and usually they're either kind of herding type dogs, like border collies, high energy type dogs.
Right.
Labs also make very good dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of any type of high energy or retriever or working type dog would make a really good trail dog.
So now, Charlie would ride with you around the lake there, is what you're saying.
So we go up to Gambrel, Charlie would. And
really?
She was part lab and part border collie. So she was very high energy, very intelligent. She would get things.
I never knew you did that. That's interesting.
So,
that's new. I didn't know
and it was funny with her, taking her the first time up there. She had never even seen a mountain bike. She didn't know what a trail was. And so, but I didn't know what I was doing either. I was 25. I didn't even have kids yet. Whatever.
Right.
We're just going mountain biking. I'm sure you'll love it, dog.
Right.
And that's not the right approach, as I'm going to talk about. But luckily enough, she was very smart. So I started riding. She got ahead of me, and we got tangled up for a second. Right. And that was the last time that ever happened. From then on, I just pointed to my back wheel. She went to my back wheel, and we went down the trail. From then on, she would just stick to my rear wheel. She knew to stick to my rear wheel. And we would do, I never overdid it, but we would do 3 to 5 miles. And mind you, on that trail, the second half is very steep uphill. So while I'm working my butt off, she's basically just walking, behind me. It's because I'm going very slow.
Right.
And in the middle was a pond. And so I would rest because I was tired. And her rest was going to fetch a tennis ball in the water. That's what she would do. And then we would get back on and finish the trail. Cool. So those were kind of, I was lucky in that she was able to overcome my missteps with training her to be a trail dog.
So what would you do differently with Tucker now?
Yeah. So a couple things. First of all, you definitely want to wait until the dog is at least about a year of age. Before that, if you run them too hard, you run the risk of, it's kind of like having a young kid bench pressing big weights. It kind of destroys their growth and their muscle and everything else like that. And it's not healthy for them. It's not good for them. So the first thing is wait until they're a year old.
So next spring.
Yes. Second thing is make sure you always have enough water and food for them. Don't abuse them. It's very hard for them to run, with a mountain bike going 20 miles an hour downhill. Like, that's a lot. They're running.
It's almost like us riding 50 miles like you, never drinking water.
It's very hard. So take frequent breaks. don't kill them, especially on a hot day. Make sure you have plenty of water and make sure you stop a lot for them and make sure they're well fed and well taken
Right.
care of. The third thing I would say is before you get your dog out there, build your rapport with the dog, build your
Mm-hmm.
relationship with the dog. Make sure they're well trained off the bike. So they
Yeah.
know how to sit, they know how to stay, they
Come,
know how to
come
come
back.
to you.
Right. Yeah.
They're very obedient. They know that you're kind of the alpha and they
Right.
listen to your commands. Make sure you have control over your dog
Right.
because the last thing you want is to take your dog on the trail. They have to be off leash pretty much.
Chasing a deer or bear
Yeah,
or something.
or they chase another biker or get in the way of
Oh
another
yeah.
biker and get
Right.
caught up in their spokes and get really
Yeah.
hurt. You
Right.
definitely don't want that. So you want a dog that you can definitely listens to
Right.
you and you can control and keep
So you
safe.
got to focus on that the first year before you even take her
Yes.
out
So
in the
for the
field.
first
Yeah.
year, exactly what I'm going to do is I'm going to build the relationship with my dog.
Hmm.
Train the dog to sit, stay, come. Make sure when we go on walks, the dog knows to stay by my side. The other important thing to do is to expose them to bikes early.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean you have to go, hauling down a trail with them
Right.
beside you. Basically, you just take them in your driveway or your garage, take out the mountain bike, bang it around them,
Right.
pedal a little bit around them, just so they get used to you riding the bike, falling over.
Short ride in the
Um,
woods nearby the house. Yeah.
yeah,
Kind
you
of
can go
thing.
into the woods and just do a short segment of 20 feet and ride down the
Right.
hill and make sure they understand where they're supposed to be
Right.
and do pop wheelies and things like that or
Yeah.
jump off stones so they get
Not
used to
afraid of it.
you
Yeah.
flying around and stuff like that and they know where they need to be to stay safe.
Hmm.
Um, once you get past that, once they're well trained, they're conditioned, they're a year old. Make sure, like I say, they're properly conditioned. You don't want to take them from they've been laying on a couch for a year and go do a 10-mile mountain
Yeah.
bike
Right.
ride. That's
Right.
not good. You want to build
Right.
up slowly. Make sure, just like you and I would, we would start our bike riding low miles and
Right.
start building up very slowly and gradually. Make sure you
Hmm.
do that with your dog as well. So it's the same kind of thing. They're not overtaxed. And then when you get out on the trail, one, be mindful of other riders. Go to a place that doesn't have a lot of people around because you don't want your dog getting in the way or getting hurt or
Right.
hurting someone else. Go somewhere private, somewhere very quiet, and just start working on the very basics. Take it a mile at a time or
Right.
even a half a mile at a time. Make
Yep.
sure the dog stays in the rear of the bike. Staying to the front or the side of the bike, they could easily get run over or fallen
Right.
on
So
or
small steps. Learn a little bit at a time as you go,
train
kind of
them to
thing.
stay in the back and basically if it's a dog that really enjoys this type of activity then that will be motivation in and of itself so you start riding
Right.
and they get ahead of you you stop that's the end of the fun until they get back behind the bike as soon as they get back behind the bike you show them get back behind the bike
Hmm.
and then you start again and
Right.
before you know it these types of dogs are very smart also they'll realize
Right.
oh the fun only keeps going if I'm
I'm
behind the bike
behind. Yeah. Right.
and sooner or
Cool.
later, you build up mile over mile, and they get the hang of it. They understand what you're doing,
Yeah.
and you have a trail dog for the rest of your days. And both
Those
of
are
you are
great
happy
tips
and
for somebody,
build a
a new
relationship.
pup or a young dog that they haven't done anything like this. They
Right.
probably never. A lot of people probably never hear viewers, listeners probably never thought about taking their dog with a bike ride before.
Oh,
So
it's
that's
it's the
different.
absolute best to share that
Yeah.
with your dog, and the dogs these breeds love it. Now, certain breeds you don't
Yeah.
want to take your cocker spaniel out there and
That's what I
or
grew up with. My mother-in-law raised Cocker Spaniels.
yeah, you don't want to take a Chihuahua out there racing after your bike. It's just
I
not
was joking
go.
with my mother-in-law. I want a real dog when I grow up.
Yeah.
So
So there are certain breeds. I would encourage you to research that online. Usually they're your kind of herding,
hunting,
working,
herding dogs, kind
retriever,
of thing.
hunting type dogs
Yeah.
that are very smart and very high energy and want
Yeah.
to do this type of thing. And that's the other thing. If the dog doesn't want to do it, don't make them do it, you
I
know?
always wanted a Vizsla, a Hungarian. It's a
Oh,
Hungarian
yeah.
bird
Uh-huh.
dog. They're pretty, really pretty.
Yeah.
Or a Rhodesian Ridgeback is another cool dog.
Uh-huh.
Those are my two favorites. I used to go to dog shows with my mother-in-law. I
Really?
always, yeah, yeah, because she judged, she raised, she
No
bred.
joke.
Yeah, so I used to go to local in Maryland here. I'd go to the American Cocker Club dog show, and they did have other dogs there occasionally. It was cool. I was like, I want a real dog.
Yeah, well,
pissed off when I say that, but
it looks like we have one here as he's sleeping
that's
on my
exciting.
foot.
That's really cool. A cool tip that a lot of people probably wouldn't think about taking their dog bike riding. So this
Yeah, it's a
is
lot of
a
fun.
neat thing. I think on the CNO, occasionally I'll see somebody with a dog while they're riding bike, but not often. It's not very
CNO's
often.
tough. There's so many people there, and it's so
Yeah.
narrow.
Yeah.
You really want to be out, kind of like Micho State Forest type of thing,
Right.
where
So I guess the key is again training them to have proper etiquette around other bikes and animals and people. So if they're good with that, it can be a good experience for you and your dog, I guess.
right, and certainly
Cool.
make sure they're friendly. Don't
Yeah.
take a dog out there that's going to attack other dogs or
Yeah.
people and
Pit
cause all
bull.
sorts of problems. There's so many people out there that are only kind of thinking about themselves and their own experience. But we all share the trails, we all share the roads, so you got to be considerate of others.
Great tips, Hank. So let's finish on what do we have happening next week. I guess we were
Oh,
talking about that
please.
earlier.
I'll let you share the dirty details, but I think this is potentially going to be a good one.
So what we're thinking is we're trying to get a show to interview our significant others on what it's like to live with a cyclist. And it's a challenge at best, but we're working on it. So
Especially if you and I are the cyclists.
yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get a show together to bring our other halves on and talk about the pros and cons of that. And it's to be, should we say, to be continued if we can get the show.
I think they need to not only comment on the cycling part, but also on the bourbon part.
Yeah, on the bourbon too. That would be
Yeah.
good. I mean, mine likes bourbon, so that would be good. Yours doesn't though, right? So she's not.
No, she keeps sniffing it, thinking maybe one of these days she'll like it, and just automatically pushes it aside.
Mine will sip a bourbon, so that would be an interesting conversation too in the beginning. So, but we're working on that, and if that doesn't work, next week we may talk about bike prep. Like, what do you do before you ride your bike and after your bike? So that's
Okay.
one or the other. That's what we got online coming up.
Yeah, certainly the spouse talk will be much more entertaining.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll see if we can get them on. They're both hemming and hawing a little bit.
We'll work on that. So
Great.
great to see you, Hank.
Yeah, you too.
Good show this week. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.
All right, peace out.
See ya.